Okay, we're going to look at a list of banned films out of Wikipedia. And I wanted to go through some of these with you so we can start looking at some issues of banning and why we have the different levels that we do today. First, just looking at this, we say for nearly the entire history of film production, certain films have been banned, meaning by law not allowed to be shown because they had been found to be obscene. For political or moral reasons, standards vary widely by country, can vary within an individual country due to political change or social mores. So, looking through some of the films, in the middle you see the country where they were banned. First, I want to go down to the United States with you. And what do you notice? Nothing in the main list. So let's say films banned in the United States. We don't have a huge list, but let's go through some of these. Date banned 1894, a film called Dorlita in the Passion Dance, banned in New Jersey after use in peep shows. Saying it was probably the first film to be banned in the United States. So it was used in peep shows, so obviously meant to sexualize. So originally we know that sexual situations were a problem. So especially at the turn of the century, easy to see why this one would be banned. Reenactment of the massacre at Wounded Knee, movie by Buffalo Bill, was banned due to sympathetic portrayal of the Native Americans. So political controversy at this time. We have the moving of the Native Americans into the western part of the country. We have the Trail of Tears. We have all this in our history. And so this is one of the first films that treated them in a positive light. So this was banned. So again, under the Miller test, there wouldn't be a question about this, but realize the Miller test is going to come much later. So up until then, it's an individual judge and or jury who gets to decide. Birth of a Nation, banned in several cities, Chicago, Las Vegas, Denver, etc. Um, and it doesn't say why it was, but notice it was unbanned in 1916 outside of Kansas. So we then have a film called Birth Control, produced starring Margaret Sanger, banned with the New York Court of Appeals holding that a film on family planning work may be censored in the interest of morality, decency, and public safety. So again, talking about how to plan for a family, effective birth control measures, etc. Found to be dealing with too many issues around morality and decency for a film. Haxan, use of torture, nudity. Scarface, banned in 5 states due to glorification of crime. Just the fact that they showed people committing crimes and seemed to be getting away with it. If that were still the case today, 90% of our films would not be able to be shown. 41, the film's theme, adultery, calls to be banned in New York City. Scarlet Street, banned in New York, again because of immorality issues. The Moon is Blue, indecent and obscene. Notice you're given very basic terms that don't mean very much. You're not saying this is a particular reason we found it. It's just overall. The Vanishing Prairie, a Walt Disney documentary banned in New York because it showed a buffalo giving birth. So again, sexual situations, but on another species. The issue was we didn't want kids to be freaked out and upset by seeing childbirth. Um, what next do we have? 1961, banned due to language, explicit nude scenes, Viva Maria, sexual anti-Catholic conduct. 68 through 91, the Titicut Follies, violation of privacy the prison inmates had filmed. Then by the time we get to The Thorn, Monty Python, etc., the Miller Code is in. So what happens in these intervening 50, 60 years? we have something called the Hays Code that is created, and eventually out of the Hays Code we get um, the ratings agency of the U.S. And we're going to go back and look at the Hays Code, but we're going to see that films, none of the people who created these films, for example, 1941, The Two-Faced Woman, no one wanted this film to be banned. They wanted it to turn a profit. Hollywood worked on a completely different system than it did today. Um, it does want to turn a profit, but back then it was the studio system. You had 4 or 5 major studios, and each actor or actress was hired to the studio, and they had a basic contract. For example, Marilyn Monroe, she would be hired to do 8 to 10 films a year. She would be told which films she would star in. She would not, you necessarily have to audition in the same way they do today. She would have to audition to make sure she did fit within the role as seen by the director. But if the director agreed to it, that was the film she would do. She didn't get the choice of her film roles or how many she did. That was all put into the contract. And so the studio systems would, farm out the actors and actresses and try to get out as many films a year as they could to turn as big a profit as they could. And so if they found something was not being played in a particular part of the country, then they would start taking notes on that, and they would start saying, well, we got to make sure that the films don't contain this or that. And we have a man named Hays who starts to develop a code of what could be done and what couldn't be done. And eventually that leads us to our PG, PG-13R rating system. And so we're going to go and look at how the Hays Code has impacted U.S. cinema.